Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to a special episode of the Metal Dude Abides. Now, if you've been following the channel, we have been going through the Rolling Stone Top 100 list, the best heavy metal songs of all time. We are closing in on the top 50, but before we get into the top 50, I wanted to do a special tribute to Ozzy Osbourne. I've been reading in the news, seeing on the internet that Ozzy is apparently feeling a little under the weather. Is not able to get out on the road and tour, and deprive us of seeing him live. So, as a get well wish to Ozzy, I thought I would put together a quick top 10 list of the greatest Ozzy Osbourne songs of all time. Now, for the purposes of this video, we're going to stick to his solo career. As many of you may have peeked ahead to the Rolling Stone list, there is lots of Black Sabbath we'll be discussing in the weeks to come. So we're just going to stick to the solo stuff for this video. And there's plenty of great songs to choose from in this top 10. So before we get into the top 10, let me just, in case you're unfamiliar, you've been under a rock somewhere and you don't know a lot about Ozzy Osbourne, let me give you a brief introduction. John Michael Osbourne was originally the lead singer of the very first heavy metal band, Black Sabbath. They were the pioneers. Lewis and Clark, Pacific Ocean, these are the guys that invented heavy metal. Ozzy Osbourne, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, Bill Ward. This is where metal began, way back in the year 1970. But after 8 solo albums, Black Sabbath got together to do a 9th solo album, and things did not go well. At that point, years of alcohol and drug abuse had finally taken its toll, and Black Sabbath decided it was time for a change, and got rid of Ozzy. In a very controversial move, they moved on, and Ozzy was left with nothing. Now, at this point, the record labels were still very involved in the music, and the Black Sabbath account, if you will, was run by a man by the name of Don Arden. Now, Don Arden had a daughter named Sharon, who was then sent to find Ozzy, probably knowing the record company, to see if they could collect some debts, do whatever, kick a man when he's down type of thing. But when Sharon found Ozzy, she realized that this guy was very talented, and she took it upon herself to see if she could revive his career and get Ozzy back on his feet. Well, the rest is history. That same Sharon, of course, ended up being Ozzy's wife, Sharon Osbourne now, and Ozzy has been a dominant voice in the heavy metal community. 13 albums, spanning now into his 5th decade. So what a fantastic career he's had. We're celebrating it now. So without further ado, let's look at the top 10 songs from Ozzy Osbourne. All right, coming in at number 11 on the list. Yes, you heard me right. Number 11 on a top 10 list. You're like, what's going on? Already you've gone off the beaten path. Well, the reason this song is number 11 is because it's technically not an Ozzy Osbourne song, but it has to be on this list. This song technically is a Lita Ford song off her 1988 Lita album, Close My Eyes Forever. Now, I will admit, Ozzy's done guest vocals on many albums, and we don't want to go through all of those songs. But I thought this song was important because it is historic. It is groundbreaking. In 1988, having a heavy metal song in a duet version with a female lead singer and a male lead singer was unheard of. I don't believe I had ever seen that done before. And not only did they do it, not only was it groundbreaking, it was fantastic. Close My Eyes Forever, just, praise on that creepy Ozzy Osbourne singing style, and Lita Ford's vocals blend with his perfectly. Now, just as a comparison, this song was remade a couple of years ago by Dave Draiman of Disturbed and Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. Now, Dave and Lizzie are two of the greatest vocalists in heavy metal, and two of my favorite vocalists. But they couldn't recreate this song because it's not about soaring vocals. It's about raw, spooky Ozzy at his finest. So I can't put it in the top 10 songs because it's not technically an Ozzy song, but we're going to put it in here because it's excellent. If you've never heard this song, go check it out. You have to go over to the Lita catalog to get it, but it's well worth the journey. Coming in at number 11, Close My Eyes Forever, Lita Ford and Ozzy Osbourne. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into the top 10. Coming in number 10, Miracle Man from the 1988 No Rest for the Wicked album. This is the first album to feature Zakk Wylde on guitarist. Now, I mention guitarists a lot because they have a prominent role in Ozzy's history, as Ozzy has a number of guitarists that he's been associated with. This song, I put it in at number 10, and I'll be honest. If you're going note by note, pound for pound, is this a great Ozzy Osbourne song? Maybe not. But the story behind it is so fascinating that it makes the song so enjoyable because it's dripping with irony and sarcasm. So you see, back in the 80s, heavy metal was under attack. We talk a lot about the fact that the PMRC was hunting heavy metal. And you also had this big televangelist movement in the 80s. And the televangelist movement, in a nutshell, were people preying on the elderly, preying on homebound people to take their money in order to get prayers and blessings. It was really a disgusting scandal, and luckily it didn't last long past the 80s. Well, as you can imagine, the televangelists had a target on heavy metal as well, and in particularly Ozzy Osbourne. It was a hard time for heavy metalists because you had the PMRC trying to censor metal. You had these televangelists burning albums and playing them backwards, looking for satanic messages. You had people suing heavy metal bands because unfortunate, tragic, suicides and whatnot that were happening, and they were blaming that on the actual artists, the heavy metal artists. It was terrible. So when Jimmy Swaggart, who was one of the head honchos in the televangelist movement, got caught in a prostitution scandal, well, Ozzy relished in the irony of it and put out a song dripping with revenge, along with a video of him in a Jimmy Swaggart mask running around with his pants down around his ankles and chasing a bunch of pigs. It was pretty funny stuff. And it really was just, like I said, just dripping with good old-fashioned revenge, and really highlighted the hypocrisy that was going on in the world, as only Ozzy could do. Just the opening tracks of this have Ozzy laughing hysterically, and you knew that you were going to be in for a fun song and a great song. Now, the televangelist movement has long since passed. This song may be a little bit dated for those who weren't there at the time, but trust me, those of us that were there at the time were all in on the joke, and it was a great joke indeed. So coming in at number 10, Miracle Man. Recency bias alert. Coming in at number 9 on our countdown is Patient number 9, off the 2022, the newest album in the Ozzy Osbourne collection. Having Ozzy Osbourne and Jeff Beck together was not on my bingo card, but absolutely love every minute of it. For those of you who may not know, Jeff Beck is one of my all-time favorite guitarists, and him teaming up with Ozzy was fantastic. Of course, we lost Jeff Beck, and so this makes it even more sweet. Now, there's actually 2 songs on this album that I really wanted to put on this list, but I hesitated to do so because of the fact, as I said at the beginning of this video, recency bias. So I also want to point out that Degradation Rules is a fantastic song as well. Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi together again, like peanut butter and jelly. Tony really knows how to build riffs around Ozzy's vocals. Both these songs are fantastic. If you come back in a few years, maybe both of these end up on the list. This most current album was such a pleasant surprise. As much as I liked Ozzy, I tend to favor his older material, stuff that was in the 80s and early 90s. So when this came out, I was just blown away. It was just so fantastic. A lot of times artists will have like a celebrity guest type album. They never really turn out very well. This one turned out fantastic. Ozzy did a great job. And if you have not heard, if you've kind of lost the track of Ozzy over the years, I mean, has been 50 some odd years, hunt down this album, look up Degradation Rules, and look up Patient Number 9, 2 of the best songs in the Ozzy catalog, and you get a bonus of a little bit of Tony Iommi and Jeff Beck thrown in to boot. I highly recommend this album. Highly recommend these 2 songs. In fact, Degradation Rules actually got a Grammy Award win, and I believe Patient Number 9, the album, also won a Grammy. So congratulations to Ozzy. Much deserved. One of the best albums in recent memory. And at number 9 is Patient Number 9. Now, coming in at number 8 may seem like an odd choice to many of you. I'm going to go with Goodbye to Romance. You're saying, I've seen a lot of lists. I don't really see that as one of the better songs in the Ozzy catalog. Well, let me explain to you why. You see, this song kind of explains why Ozzy has been one of the most amazing performers in heavy metal history. If we're being really honest with ourselves, Ozzy's not the best singer you're ever going to hear. So what is the secret sauce? What makes Ozzy Ozzy? Why do people love him? Because Ozzy's real. And Ozzy is authentic. And Ozzy is a person who has shared his life with us through his songs. And the song Goodbye to Romance is one of the most excellent written songs with the most excellent insights to what Ozzy Osbourne was going through at that time. Again, back to the beginning of this video, this is at the very beginning of his solo career. He's just recently divorced. He's been kicked out of the band that he had been in for a decade, longer probably by the time they had, just a decade that they'd been recording. Here's a man who everyone in his life that he loved, or everyone in his life that he thought loved him, had abandoned him. Goodbye to friends, goodbye to romance. Ozzy was all by himself. And he had to be questioning, is this the end? In fact, in the lyrics, it says, maybe we'll meet in the end. Like Ozzy was at the end of himself. It was over. Everything that he had in his life had been taken from him. And he sings that so beautifully in this song and really opens up to the emotions he was feeling at that time. There's a lot of songs like this on The Blizzard of Oz. I think his greatest achievement musically. But that's why we love Ozzy, because we know Ozzy. And Ozzy's never been afraid to hide from us, from his substance use issues to his mental health issues, and here to that feeling of abandonment and maybe thinking his career was over. But he does provide a life lesson through this song as well. So if you're one of those people who feels like it's the end of the road, just remember, Ozzy Osbourne dealt with that and came out swinging. Believe in yourself. Go for it. There could be an opportunity waiting just around the corner. Don't give up. Keep on fighting. Coming in at number 8, Ozzy Osbourne, Goodbye to Romance. After the tragic death of Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne started a new era of music with guitarist Jake E. Lee. This was a very commercially successful era of the band as they produced two really big albums, 1983's Bark at the Moon and 1986's The Ultimate Sin. Now, the reason that these were commercially successful was because MTV was at this point going full bore, and MTV was the perfect tailor-made vehicle for the showmanship of Ozzy Osbourne. Bark at the Moon had a very popular video complete with Ozzy Osbourne transforming into a werewolf. We won't even talk about the videos he did on The Ultimate Sin in his polka dot boxer shorts. But for all the popularity of these two albums, my choice today, coming in at number 7, is a much deeper track. A track maybe you haven't heard of, Journey to the Center of Eternity. Now, this song is a little bit of a departure from Ozzy. Let's face it, if you take this video and turn it into a drinking game, for every time I say creepy or moody or spooky, you're going to be crocked before you even get to the top 3, because that's Ozzy's style. Very slow, dark, heavy, creepy music. And this song starts out that way with a really weird, kind of ominous organ solo. But then all of a sudden, it just kicks into high gear, and Ozzy produces just a real slapper of a song that goes 110 miles an hour. And again, which is a departure for him. It's one of the heavier, faster songs in the Ozzy catalog, and it is excellent. Jake E. Lee's work here on guitar, while he had talk about tough shoes to fill coming in for Randy Rhoads, Jake E. Lee by no means is a bad guitarist. He is a fantastic guitarist. The drums on this song are very good. Again, Ozzy's vocals are fantastic. This is by far, in my opinion, the best song on either of the Jake E. Lee albums. And again, it comes in at number 7, Journey to the Center of Eternity. Let's keep it fast. Coming in at number 6, from the Diary of a Madman album, Over the Mountain. Now, I've mentioned this in a few videos before, but I love when a band puts a really fast-moving, sets the tone kind of pace for an album song right at the beginning of an album. Ozzy does this on the first album, The Blizzard of Oz, with a great hard-charging song called I Don't Know. But I do believe he tops himself on the second album with the absolutely scorching album opener, Over the Mountain. This song is it's fantastic, it's fast, it's aggressive, and it features, again, the great guitarist Randy Rhoads, who just puts on a clinic in this song. So if you like a good album opener, look no further than our song number 6, Over the Mountain. Now, coming in at number 5 on the all-time Ozzy Osbourne songs. We're going to stick to the album, Diary of a Madman, but this time we're going to go to the title track. This is a song that closes out the album. Now, we talked about how Over the Mountain, right, was one of the best opening tracks you're ever going to hear on an album. Diary of a Madman is the perfect closer to an album. And let me just throw this added bonus in here. If you really want to get the full impact of the song, Diary of a Madman stands alone on its own perfectly. But if you play the song SATO, as it's done on the album, right before Diary of a Madman, it even gives it more feel, more mood, Those two songs just blend together in a really ominous way. So if you're interested, go check that out. Play these two songs back to back, SATO and Diary of a Madman, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, having said all that, this song starts out, again, very moody, lots of drums, and then it's kind of like, one of the things about Ozzy up to this point is he had always been, at the end of the day, Black Sabbath was a very heavy band, but it was very blues oriented. Randy Rhoads, however, was a trained classical guitarist. And so when you start to see the first two albums of Ozzy, you start to see a little bit of that classical influence coming into the music. And this song is probably the pinnacle of that. Very classically oriented. You have like this eerie choir at the end of the song, kind of bringing us home. Really cool song. And I think it's one of those types of eras, like if you go see Ozzy live on tour, he opens up his tours with some really dark classical music. And I think it all springs from the effect that Randy Rhoads had on him in these first two albums. Classical, moody, creepy, disturbing. This song has it all. Very dark, very heavy. Has to be on the list. So coming in again at number 5, Diary of a Madman. All right, coming in at number 4 on the Ozzy Osbourne countdown is No More Tears. And we talk about creepy. We talk about disturbing. Well, check this one out. Many artists have done songs about Jack the Ripper or that sort of ilk. But what Ozzy does is a little bit of a twist on it, in that the song is about Jack the Ripper, but it's from Jack the Ripper's perspective. So it's very psychologically chilling, if you will. And it really goes through the mindset of Jack the Ripper, my interpretation, of course, in that he's killing these people. And he hates to kill these people, but he's freeing them from all future pain and sorrow. So he kind of justifies his heinous acts. It's very, very dark, very chilling song. And of course, Ozzy, again, back to being tailor-made for MTV, puts out an equally creepy video. The song has a beautiful piano number right in the middle of it that kind of brings about, again, back to kind of the classical leanings of the Ozzy catalog. And it's just dark, and it's just heavy, and it's kind of interesting. It is the title track to the 1991 No More Tears album, which is kind of a lighter album for Ozzy Osbourne. At this point, for those of you who may or may not know, Ozzy had decided to hang it up. He had had enough. This was his farewell album. His subsequent tour was the No More Tours tour. This was it. I actually saw Ozzy on this tour, I think 3 times. For those of you who probably figured it out from previous videos, I live here in the Denver area. Got to see him on this tour at Red Rocks. Quick funny story. Red Rocks is an outdoor amphitheater up in the mountains right outside of Denver. The Ozzy show, it's raining cats and dogs. It is pouring rain. And at that time, Ozzy kind of had a gimmick where he would come out at the beginning of his concerts, and usually he would be greeted by, people in a hot arena who had been, probably moshing around for the last 2 hours, hot and sweaty. And so he would come out, throw a bucket of water on the crowd and yell, let the madness begin. Right? So he comes running out on stage. It's pouring rain. Comes running out with his bucket. And instead looks out at us, dumps the water on himself, let the madness begin. God love you, Ozzy. So anyway, saw him on this tour. And this album kind of reflects like I'm Going Away. There's one of the big hits off the song. Mama, I'm Coming Home is a song that he wrote to say, hey, Sharon, I'm giving up the life of rock and roll. I'm coming home to you, baby. And this is it. So anyway, the album itself is very reflective and maybe a little more mellow than you're used to from Ozzy. And then and then there's this song. It's just classical, dark, maybe even a throwback to some of the work he did with Black Sabbath. Really heavy bass in the song, reminiscent of the time he did with Geezer Butler. So great song, great title track. Ozzy always has a fantastic title track. Go check it out. Coming in at number 4, No More Tears. So you're probably wondering to yourselves, wait a minute. Ozzy retired in 1991? He had a No More Tours tour? Well, much like other heavy metal artists, pro wrestlers, heavyweight boxers, no retirement ever seems to stick too long. And so 4 years later, in 1995, Ozzy came back to us with the album Osmosis. And the song that we're going to select today at number 3, Perry Mason, is one of the oddest songs in the Ozzy catalog. So you have to ask yourself, what was Ozzy doing for 4 years? What was he doing in retirement? When he came back, his tour was called the Retirement Sucks Tour, like he was done with it. But I do sit around sometimes and wonder, what was Ozzy doing? Was he just sitting around watching old, courtroom dramas? Because for those of you who may or may not know, Perry Mason was a lawyer in a TV show way back in the black and white era. I think we're talking like 50s, maybe early 60s. Was Ozzy just sitting around watching courtroom dramas? Reminds me of the scene in Groundhog Day where Andy McDowell looks over at Bill Murray and says, is this how you're going to spend eternity? As he's flipping cards into a hat. Was Ozzy just planning to watch TV and fade off into the sunset? Whatever it was, Ozzy came back with a vengeance. And again, not sure what this song's about, but it's a real banger. We talk about all the great guitarists. Zakk Wylde, Jake E. Lee, the great Randy Rhoads. This song might have my favorite riff in the entire Ozzy catalog. It's heavy, it's abrupt, it's shocking, really good stuff. So we're so glad, Ozzy, you decided not to hang him up in 1991 and came back to us in 1995. And just as a bonus, presented one of the heaviest, best songs in the entire catalog. If I pull up an Ozzy Osbourne playlist now, you're going to hear a lot of Randy Rhoads, but you're always going to hear, coming in at number 3, Perry Mason. If you've been following along on the top 100 heavy metal list, you'll know that we have an ongoing debate about signature songs versus potentially the best song or your favorite song of that artist. In this case, at number 2, we're going with the signature song, All Aboard the Crazy Train. Now, you ask, why is this so Ozzy's signature song? Well, if you've been to a sporting event or an arena event in the last 40 years, you've probably heard Crazy Train. And just because it's played in football games and arenas, I think sometimes the true meaning of this song is lost. One of the things that we talked about very early in this video was the things that separated Ozzy from other artists. And one of those is he is a brilliant lyricist and really has a way of cutting through the old crap cake. Crazy Train is one of the most brilliant geopolitical statements in music of all time. It was written in the height of the Cold War. For those of you who weren't around during this wonderful era, we lived under constant fear that some hothead was going to lose their cool and send us hurling into nuclear Armageddon. It was a very interesting and in some ways scary, dark time. Well, Ozzy cut through all that with a brilliant song. But even though the Cold War's over, a lot of the lyrics still hold true today. One of those lines, "The media sells it and you live the role," is basically saying the media is propaganda meant to manipulate you. And that's still true today. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let the media scare you. Don't let them infuriate you. Dig for your own facts, find out the truth. Secondly, and maybe the most important line ever written, we need to learn how to love and forget how to hate. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not matter what your cause or what your purpose. If you're out on the internet or out in public, yelling at people, cursing at people, calling people names, lashing out in anger, you're the bad guy. Remember this. Even with your enemies, spread love, not hate. Do it for Ozzy's sake. Finally coming in at number 1, Mr. Crowley, a biographical tale of the infamous occultist, Satanist Aleister Crowley. Now, why is Ozzy singing about Aleister Crowley? Well, you have to understand, back in the 70s, the occult, raising people from the dead, bringing, trouncing around in the spiritual world was a big thing. Yeah, that's right. Bell bottoms, platform shoes, seances, bringing back people from the dead. Welcome to the 70s. It was a wild decade. Black Sabbath, of which Ozzy was in that band, and of course Led Zeppelin, very famous for going out to like Aleister Crowley's estate and spending the night and being inspired to write songs. There was a rumor for a long time, don't know if it's true, could be one of those urban myths. The Stairway to Heaven was written after a night at Aleister Crowley's mansion. Needless to say, what could be on the top of this list but the creepiest, spookiest song in the Ozzy catalog? Topped off with, again, Randy Rhoads, perhaps his best solo ever. It was a funny story that Ozzy used to tell that, Randy Rhoads was cranking out solo after solo. Now here comes this song, creepy, dirgy, Mr. Crowley. And Ozzy's like, okay, hotshot, make a solo for this. Very challenging task, right? And here Randy Rhoads says, all right, challenge accepted, and puts in one of the most beautiful, well-crafted solos in the history of heavy metal. That's what makes this song stand apart in a list of fantastic Ozzy songs. Mr. Crowley stands at number 1. So that's the list. Hope you enjoyed it. Now I have linked a playlist in the description below. Check it out if you're unfamiliar with some of these Ozzy songs and you want to give it a listen. Please go out to these sites, check out this music. Again, some of the greatest songs ever written. But most importantly, I want to close with, get well, Ozzy. We miss you and hope to see you back on the road, biting off heads of bats and doing all sorts of crazy stuff very soon. Everyone else, take care.